At around 10:30 a.m. on September 8, 2005, my parents and I arrived at Rome's Leonardo da Vinci Airport, also known as Fiumicino. From there, we got on a Globus bus to our hotel, the Star Hotel Michelangelo, located near the Vatican. Since we had some free time before we had to meet with the rest of the tour group for dinner, we walked to St. Peter's Square, also known as the Piazza San Pietro. The Lateran Treaty of 1929 established Vatican City as an independent sovereign state. After we came back from walking around the Vatican, we met our tour director Igor Spinelli and our bus driver Giuseppe, and went on a short bus tour of the city before heading to dinner.
Was over. This reason why we decided to build everywhere. For this reason we say that Rome is the largest archaeological park of the world. For this reason we say that Rome is a city museum, because there is things to be seen everywhere at every corner. Here on our left hand side now, we have one of the, on the left hand side there is the Palatine Hill. Here on our left, where we are now, we still have the Aventine Hill facing the Palatine Hill. Between the Aventine poisoning for our health, this is the reason why they say that generation after generation, by drinking the water of the pipes that were made of lead, all the Romans became great. Above the arch, there was the pipe, you see? The square part. And usually the aqueducts were built in a steep position going down, so that they would use the natural pressure of the water. Since they didn't have pipes, since they didn't have like mechanisms anyway, they would use the natural pressure of the aqueducts. Right there in front of us now, you see? We mentioned before, if you look at them, they don't look very interesting. You would expect the surrounding walls of the city of Rome, was the capital of the Roman Empire, to be much higher, but don't forget that this one here is not the original level of the city. They raised it up for about 10-15 meters.
After an early morning wake-up call, we met our local guide in Rome, Francesco, and went to the Vatican museums. The Vatican museums were originally palaces built for the popes during the Renaissance in the 1500s. It is now considered one of Europe's top art museums. Contained within are collections of Egyptian, Greek, medieval, and Renaissance art, as well as some modern religious artwork. Also part of the Vatican Museum is the Sistine Chapel. The Sistine Chapel is where the College of Cardinals currently gather in a conclave to elect a new pope. In 1508, Pope Julius II commissioned Michelangelo to paint the ceilings with scenes from the Old Testament, and in 1533, Pope Paul III had Michelangelo paint the Last Judgment on the altar wall. The Nippon Television Network, who worked on the restoration of the Sistine Chapel's frescoes, owned copyrights over their imagery. As a result, photography is not permitted inside. But, if you are sneaky, you can still get a few good shots. From the Sistine Chapel we entered St. Peter's Basilica, also known as the Basilica di San Pietro. In 64 AD, this was the site of the Circus of Nero, where St. Peter was buried. The Roman Emperor Constantine built a basilica on top of St. Peter's tomb in 324 AD. Reconstruction of the present basilica began in 1508 and was completed in 1626. The Dome of St. Peter's was designed by Michelangelo, who was the chief architect from 1546 until his death in 1564. This is the bronze statue of St. Peter, where you can touch or even kiss his toe. This statue of St. Longinus was sculpted by Bernini in 1639. It represents one of the major relics residing in the basilica, the Lance of Longinus, which was supposedly the spear used to pierce Jesus while he was on the cross. Michelangelo's Pieta was sculpted in 1499. After a crazy man claiming to be Jesus attacked the sculpture with an axe in 1972, bulletproof glass was put in front of it for protection. The Swiss guards are responsible for the security of the Vatican. All 100 of the guards are Roman Catholics of Swiss citizenship. They must be able to speak 5 languages and be at least 5 feet 9 inches tall. Besides being trained in the use of modern weapons, they are also trained to use swords and halberds. The Pope's study and bedroom are located behind the top 2 right windows in the building overlooking St. Peter's Square. From the Vatican, we drove to the Roman Forum and the Colosseum. The Arch of Constantine, located between the Forum and the Colosseum, was built in 315 AD. The reliefs decorating the arch were scavenged from other monuments. During the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire, the Forum contained many important temples as well as the Senate House. The Arch of Titus was erected in 81 AD to commemorate the sack of Jerusalem by the Emperor Vespasian and his brother Titus. After visiting the Forum, we were supposed to go inside the Colosseum. Unfortunately, it was having electrical problems, so no one was permitted entrance. On the way back to the hotel, we passed by the Victor Emmanuel Monument. In the afternoon, we took a taxi from the hotel to go to the Spanish Steps. The pink building to the right of the steps is where the English poet John Keats died in 1821. We next walked to the Pantheon. It was originally built as a Roman temple 2,000 years ago, but is now a church. From the Pantheon, we walked to the Piazza Navona to have dinner at Tre Scalini and then headed back to the hotel. The next morning, we began our drive to Pisa. On the way, as we often did throughout this tour, we stopped at an auto grill for lunch. At around 1:30, we arrived in Pisa and entered the Field of Miracles. The 3 buildings on the lawn are the Baptistery, the Duomo, and the Leaning Tower. Construction of the Leaning Tower, which serves as the bell tower for the Duomo, began in 1173. Because of the sandy soil, the tower started leaning in 1274 after the third level was added. It is said that Galileo Galilei dropped two balls of different mass from the tower to demonstrate that objects fall to the earth with constant acceleration. In 1990, after the lean of the tower increased to 5 meters from vertical, it was closed to the public so that engineers could work on it. In 2001, after the lean was reduced by 50 centimeters, the tower was reopened. Engineers have declared that the tower should be stable for the next 300 years. The Duomo started to be built in 1063 and was finished about a century later. The baptistry in the Field of Miracles is the largest in Italy. From Pisa, we continued on to Florence and checked into the Grand Hotel Mediterraneo. The next morning we headed to the Academy of Fine Arts in Florence to see Michelangelo's statue of David. Unfortunately, pictures were not allowed inside. After leaving the Academy, we made a short walk to Florence's Duomo, the Santa Maria del Fiore. The Duomo, consecrated by Pope Eugene IV in 1436, is the fourth largest church in Europe. The bell tower next to the cathedral was designed by Giotto in 1334 and completed in 1359. Florence's baptistry is the oldest building in the city and was probably built during the 6th century. The east door to the baptistry, dubbed the Gate of Paradise by Michelangelo, was made by Lorenzo Ghiberti between 1424 and 1452. On the door are bronze panels with scenes from the Old Testament. From the Duomo, we walked to the Piazza della Signoria. The largest building on the square is the Palazzo Vecchio, which was completed in 1322 and is Florence's town hall. In front of Palazzo Vecchio is a replica statue of David. The original one stood here until 1873. Also next to the square is the Uffizi. It was originally built as government offices for the Medici family, but is now Italy's greatest art gallery. Inside are works such as Botticelli's Birth of Venus and Michelangelo's Holy Family. The Piazza della Signoria also contains the Fountain of Neptune. It has been attacked by vandals numerous times. Our next stop was the Piazza Santa Croce. The Church of Santa Croce contains the tombs of Michelangelo, Galileo, and Machiavelli. Dante has a monument outside, but he was actually buried in a ravina. While visiting the square, we went to the Missouri Leather Factory and Gold Market before heading to lunch at the Finisterre restaurant nearby. Afterwards, we stopped at Vivoli, which is supposed to have the best gelato in Florence. Next, we walked toward the Arno River and headed to Ponte Vecchio. Built in 1354, this bridge is known for its many jewelry shops. In the evening, we went to an optional Tuscan dinner with our tour group. But, before heading to the restaurant in the Tuscan hills, we stopped by the Piazzale Michelangelo with its bronze statue of David and wonderful view of Florence. The next day we drove past Genoa and then north to Milan. Milan, the capital of the Lombardy region, is the fashion and finance center of Italy. In 313 AD, the Emperor Constantine proclaimed the Edict of Milan, which granted Christians the freedom to worship throughout the Roman Empire. Piazza del Duomo lies in the center of Milan. The Duomo located here is the largest Gothic cathedral in the world. It is 157 meters tall and 92 meters at its widest point. Construction began in 1386 and was finally completed in 1813. There are 135 spires on the roof, and countless gargoyles and other statues along its exterior. Inside, there is a cross hung from the ceiling which is supposed to contain a nail from Jesus' crucifix. The Duomo's crypt contains the tomb of St. Charles Borromeo. Next to the cathedral is the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele II. Named after the first king of a unified Italy, this glass dome building in the shape of a cruciform is one of the most impressive shopping malls in Italy. Near the Galleria is the La Scala Opera House, one of the most famous opera houses in the world. In the square in front of the opera house is a statue of Leonardo da Vinci. Originally from Florence, Leonardo lived in Milan for 17 years under the employ of the Sforza family. While in Milan, he painted the Last Supper at the convent of Santa Maria delle Grazie between 1495 and 1498. Because he used oil paint on dry plaster instead of the normal frescoing technique, the mural has deteriorated rapidly. Unfortunately, seeing the Last Supper was not in this tour's itinerary. At around 4 p.m., we reboarded the bus and continued on to Stresa, a resort town on the shores of Lake Maggiore.
After the barbarian invasions, this area was completely forgotten for so many centuries, and we have to...
In Stresa, we stayed at the Grand Hotel Bristol. Next to our hotel was the Grand Hotel des Illes Borromeus. This is where Ernest Hemingway stayed after being wounded while serving as an ambulance driver in World War I. This hotel is also where he set part of his novel, A Farewell to Arms. The next morning we boarded boats to take us to the island of Isola Bella on Lake Maggiore. There are two other main islands on Lake Maggiore that we did not visit: Isola Madre and Isola di Pescatori. Isola Bella was named by Charles Borromeo for his wife Isabella. In 1632, construction began on the island's Baroque palace and gardens. Isola Bella was the site of the 1935 Stresa Conference, where Mussolini, along with British and French diplomats, jointly condemned Germany's military buildup. On display are a collection of marionettes which were made in the early 19th century and used to entertain the Borromeo family and their guests. On the ground floor of the palace is a man-made grotto decorated with seashells. The garden on Isola Bella contains magnolias, cypresses, citrus trees, rare plants, and many flowers. There are also white peacocks. top of the terraced pyramid in the garden is a statue of a unicorn, which was the emblem of the Borromeo family. After visiting Isola Bella, we were free to wander around Stresa. Later in the afternoon, I boarded a gondola at the ropeway station in Stresa in order to go up to the top of Mount Motoroni. The first stop on the ropeway is Alpino, with its botanic garden and wonderful view of Lake Maggiore. From the final stop at Motoroni, I had to hike up an extremely steep hill to reach the peak. On the other side of the mountain is Lake Orta. The next morning, we took a short drive across the border into Switzerland to do a little shopping in Lugano. Lugano, we recrossed the border back into Italy and headed to Verona. Verona is the second largest city in the Veneto region. Because it lies along the major routes from Germany and Austria into central Italy, it is an important trading center. Verona is also famous for its many Roman ruins. The arena in Verona is the third largest in the world. It was completed in 30 AD. Originally, the arena was used for gladiator battles, but is now used for opera concerts. In the center of the town is the Piazza Urbe. The column topped by the Venetian lion in the square is a reminder of Venice conquering Verona in 1405. Close to the square are the Scaligeri tombs. The Scaligeri family ruled Verona from 1263 to 1387. Also in Verona is the House of Juliet. Although the story of Romeo and Juliet is a work of fiction, it doesn't stop people from visiting her supposed house and making wishes for love underneath the balcony. After leaving Verona, we headed to Venice. Our hotel, the Park Hotel Ipini, was actually on the mainland in Mestre. From Mestre, we took the causeway into Venice for one of the tour's optional excursions, the Venetian Night Out. When we arrived, we boarded water taxis and cruised down the Grand Canal to St. Mark's Square. Dinner was at the restaurant All Angelo near St. Mark's Square. After dinner, we had a little free time at St. Mark's Square to take in the nighttime atmosphere and to enjoy the music of the dueling cafe orchestras. On September 15th, we boarded a water bus to take us up the Giudecca Canal to St. Mark's Square.
The church that you see on the left with the big dome, the little dome and the two bell towers is not St. Mark's. This is the Church of St. Mary of Health. The front of it faces the Grand Canal, which is just the other side of these buildings to the left of us now. Church of St. George on the right-hand side, and of course your eyes are being drawn to the left because you can see the magnificent Doge's Palace from here. This is the largest building, the one with all the beautiful filigree work on the front of it, and behind it is the Basilica of St. Mark.
first stop in the morning was the Doge's palace. Photography in large bags were not permitted inside. The palace, originally built in the 9th century but rebuilt in the 13th century, was the home of the Doge, or Duke of Venice. Doges, who were elected for life, were confined by law to stay in the palace complex and the connected St. Mark's Basilica. The palace also contained the offices for a number of political institutions and the Grand Council chamber. To the rear of the Doge's palace is the Bridge of Sighs, which was used to transport prisoners to the palace for trial. Next we went to St. Mark's Basilica. Like the Doge's palace, photography in large bags were not permitted inside. St. Mark's body was stolen from Alexandria by Venetian merchants in 832 AD and placed here. The present basilica was built in 1094. These bronze horses, which are actually replicas of the originals, were stolen from the Hippodrome in Constantinople in 1204. After leaving St. Mark's Basilica, we headed to the Vecchia Murano glass shop to see a glass-blowing demonstration. Most of the glassmakers in Venice actually reside in the island of Murano, since they were forced to move there in 1291 due to the risk of fires.
This is on the way to life, only if you have talent to become an when we make drinking glasses, that's important in case you want to buy glass in Venice, in here. There's no obligation to buy glass here. Yeah, we don't want.
From the glass shop, we walked back to St. Mark's Square to wait to go on an optional excursion and lunch at the lagoon island of Burano. Burano is a fishing community known for its brightly colored painted houses. The island is also famous for its lace making. At around 4 p.m., we arrived back in Venice and had a little free time to wander around. The Rialto Bridge, constructed in 1588, marks the heart of Venice and is lined with shops. It is one of only 3 bridges that cross the Grand Canal. At 6 p.m., we went back to St. Mark's Square to wait for the rest of our tour group before heading back to the hotel for dinner. The next day, on our way to Assisi, we stopped at Ravenna. This city is where Julius Caesar gathered his forces before crossing the Rubicon in 49 BC. Ravenna was also capital of the Western Roman Empire between 406 and 476 AD. Dante, who wrote the Divine Comedy, is entombed in Ravenna. We were supposed to see the mosaics at the Basilica of St. Apollinaris in Classa, but it was closed for restorations. In the afternoon, we arrived in Assisi.
Dinner tomorrow in the Dolce restaurant, and this is offered by Rose.
From the main parking area in the city, we had a short walk up the hill to our hotel to San Francesco, next to the Basilica of St. Francis. Work on the Basilica of St. Francis began 2 years after St. Francis's death in 1228. The basilica actually consists of 2 churches. The lower church is quite dark and subdued and contains St. Francis's tomb in a crypt below. The upper church is more brightly lit and contains frescoes by Giotto, which portray St. Francis's life. On September 17th, we drove to Pompeii. Pompeii was a Roman city that was destroyed by an eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. Most of the 20,000 inhabitants were able to evacuate before the eruption, but it is thought that around 2,000 died due to the toxic fumes. The ashes from the volcano buried the town, and it wasn't rediscovered until 1600. Excavations did not begin until 1748. The first buildings and areas that we visited were the Basilica, which served as a court of law, the Temple of Apollo, and the Forum. Plaster casts of the victims of the eruption have been created by filling the cavities in the ground that were left by their bodies. The form baths consisted of a cold bath or frigidarium, a warm bath or tepidarium, and a hot bath or caldarium. After visiting the bathhouses, we saw the remains of a restaurant, a restored Pompeian house, and the remains of a brothel, bakery, and marketplace. After enjoying the view of Mount Vesuvius, we drove on to nearby Naples. According to the original itinerary, our tour group was supposed to stay in Sorrento. But because all the hotels were full, the itinerary was changed and we stayed 2 nights in Naples at the Jolly Hotel Naples. Naples was originally founded as a Greek outpost in 750 BC, but is now the capital of the Campania region of Italy. Naples is also the birthplace of the pizza. The traditional pizza margherita, made with mozzarella cheese, tomato sauce, and some leaves of basil, resembles the Italian flag with its colors. The next morning we headed to the port of Naples to get on a boat to take us to the nearby island of Capri. Unfortunately, when we got there, we were told that the sea was too choppy for the boat to cross the Bay of Naples to Capri. So, we waited while Igor tried to make alternate arrangements. After contacting the ferry company in Sorrento, he discovered that the boats were running to Capri from there, so we got back on the bus and traveled along the coast to Sorrento. At around 11 a.m., the boat arrived at the docks in Sorrento and we started on our short 40-minute cruise to Capri. During Roman times, Capri was a vacation getaway for Emperor Augustus and temporarily the capital of the Roman Empire from 27 to 37 AD during Emperor Tiberius's reign. Because the water was too choppy to allow boats through the 3 feet high opening into the Blue Grotto, we took some mini buses up to the small town of Anacapri instead. At Anacapri, we visited the Villa San Michele. Building of the villa began in 1895 by the Swedish writer and physician Axel Munch. In ancient times, it was the site of a Roman villa. At around 3 p.m. we took the boat back from Capri to Sorrento. Sorrento is a vacation resort town and the gateway to the scenic Amalfi Coast. Sorrento is also famous for its limoncello, a lemon liqueur made from lemon rinds, alcohol, water, and sugar. After some time to explore the city, we went to an optional dinner at the Mayflower restaurant and then headed back to Naples. September 19th was our last day on the guided tour. On the way to Rome, we stopped by the Abbey of Monte Cassino. The abbey was originally established by Saint Benedict, who founded the Benedictine order in 529 AD. Over the years, the abbey has been destroyed and rebuilt a number of times. In 1944, Allied aircraft bombed and destroyed the monastery during the Battle of Monte Cassino while fighting against German troops in the area. Near the abbey on Mount Caro, there is a Polish war cemetery. Buried here are more than 1,000 Polish soldiers who died during the Battle of Monte Cassino. From Monte Cassino, we headed to Rome. On the way, we made our final lunch stop at an auto grill. At around 6, we boarded the bus to go to the Trevi Fountain and the farewell dinner. Igor and Giuseppe were quite surprised to see who had claimed the front of the bus and who ended up in the back.
The back of the bus wanted to sit up front. It was a mutiny.
We rotated.
While waiting through traffic, we were able to see a little more of Rome on the way to the Trevi Fountain.
From near gate, designed by Michelangelo, by the way, you can see the people square that we're able to see from the other side. Okay, here we are in the Republican Square. This is the famous Republican Square with the beautiful fountain right in the center. Very, very impressive. Bronze statues represent.
The Trevi Fountain is the largest Baroque fountain in Rome. Building of the fountain began in 1732 and took about 30 years to complete. According to legend, if you throw one coin in the Trevi Fountain on your last day in Rome, you will guarantee yourself a return trip to the city. If you throw 2 coins, you will fall in love with someone in Rome. And, depending on who you ask, if you throw 3, you'll either get married or will have a successful divorce. From the Trevi Fountain, we headed to our tour's farewell dinner at the Mangrovia restaurant. After leaving the restaurant, we were able to see some of the sights of Rome lit up at night. On the way back to the hotel where we would say our final goodbyes to those on the tour, it became apparent that some people had a little bit too much to drink during the dinner.
Vino quando tu sposa è Pietro. For my English friends. That means when you marry to Pietro, you must drink. Drink a lot. Okay, now I give you back to my friend Igor. Ciao.
What a great tour, guy!
On our last full day in Rome, we took the hotel bus into the city. The bus dropped us off at Piazza Cavour, and we walked to Piazza Navona. This square is famous for its street artists and cafes and restaurants. From Piazza Navona, we headed to the Trevi Fountain, had lunch, and continued on to the Roman Forum area to see the markets of Trajan and the Forum of Augustus. We next headed to the nearby Colosseum. Luckily, we were able to purchase tickets and enter. Work began on the Colosseum, which was originally known as the Flavian Amphitheater, in 72 AD. The stadium was capable of seating over 50,000 people to watch gladiators in combat. The floor of the Colosseum was originally made of wood and covered with sand. Underneath were vaults and tunnels to hold animals and slaves. Much of the original marble in the Colosseum was stolen by Renaissance architects. From the Colosseum, we walked to the Basilica of St. John Lateran. This is Rome's official cathedral and where the Pope resides as Bishop of Rome. From the 4th to 14th century, the Lateran Palace next to the Basilica was the original home of the popes. We took a taxi to Castle St. Angelo. From here, we walked back to Piazza Cavour to catch our bus back to the Jolly Midas Hotel. The next day, we headed back to the United States.